So welcome today then, Mike. I've got Mike Tozer, who's the CEO and founder of Xceptional, a software testing firm based in Sydney. And Mike, your business, you have a fair proportion of your staff on the autism spectrum. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And
we have a goal to really maximize the number of staff on the spectrum. And right now we're over 50%.
Brilliant. And what got you started down this path? What was your motivation?
Yeah, good question. For me, it was kind of twofold. So I have a background in technology. I've worked building large-scale systems internationally, particularly based out of Hong Kong, for many years. And so that's kind of one side of my passion. And the other side, I have a sister and a son who are both on the autism spectrum.
Yeah.
And so alongside them for my sister for nearly 40 years, my son he's now 7, and both of them, I catch glimpses of every day their challenges, but also the amazing strengths that they have. My sister, I see the challenges she has getting into the workforce, finding and keeping a job. And there was one particular moment. I mean, there's a number of challenges, but there was one where she was working in a school as a cleaner, and they asked her one night to thoroughly clean the tables, and she spent the whole shift focusing on those tables. And she didn't clean the whiteboard, empty the bins, do the other things, because someone who follows instructions quite literally.
Yes.
And as a brother, I know that's actually a strength, and you need to understand that. But this employer actually mentioned this in her letter when they didn't renew her contract. And as a brother, that made me really quite frustrated, and kind of was a turning point for me. And I decided there and then I wanted to lead change and do things differently and start a company that really inspired others.
That's awesome. And I think, to be honest, mate, I'm sure you are as well. So a number of people I've spoken to have mentioned you. But again, I guess your publicity on TV here on Employable Me was probably a great thing for you.
That was a inflection point for our business this year. That's really set it on another trajectory. It kind of came about by accident. I had 4 separate people flick me the flyer when the Northern Pictures, the film studio, were looking for candidates and employers. Probably August? Yeah, this time last year. And the first one, I thought, at that stage we're only 3 months old. I thought, getting on TV would be too early. But by the fourth flyer I'd received, the same one, I thought, I think I'll just give Jenny a call, who was mentioned on the flyer, just for the sake of, so I can say to the 5th person I've actioned it.
Yes.
One thing led to another. They had a candidate that they thought would really map well to our model. They were particularly looking for a company that was allowing people to work remotely. It's really hard. A lot of companies allow that, but particularly for people that have been around for a while, it's really hard for a new entry-level employee to be 100% working remotely. And we'd set our model up to do that. So that kind of
perfect.
That kind of gave us that opportunity. And you're right. It's just been phenomenal. We've had some of the biggest tech companies in the world tracking us down, wanting to work with us. We've now had new relationships with several of the big banks in Sydney as a direct result of that TV show.
It's awesome, isn't it? That's brilliant. And hopefully it does inspire others to take a similar path or to do something similar to yourself, which is great. And getting
my goal as well.
Yeah, and getting started in this and recruiting people such as you have, what have been some of the key challenges that you've encountered?
I think definitely getting started, getting known by candidates, getting trusted by candidates, and getting known by companies that we're now working with. That took some time when we're starting up any company. I think we had the double challenge of there's a lot of Microsofts, SAPs, DXCs that are well-established companies, and now they're adding on an autism hiring program. And that's hard enough. We were trying to do that as well as a startup company. We particularly had a lot of challenges in the early days, really providing a kind of appropriate environment for people on the spectrum. We got some great help. We were accepted into an accelerator called Remarkable, which is technology and disability. And they were just awesome at helping us, particularly in the early stages, in a number of ways. Making sure that the things that they were doing in their program worked well for our candidates. They really were very, very accepting of us. It was hats off to them. But that's what you need. You need other people that are kind of supporting you in the startup journey. And we found that.
And I imagine that would be the case for established companies as well. Trying to go it alone is always going to be pretty tricky.
Yeah. And we've had the opportunity to work with a number of them, both Australian firms, but also US firms that are beginning their programs over here. The ones that are kind of struggling on their own, finding it really hard versus those that are looking around to others for help. I was just down in Melbourne last week for a neurodiversity hub meeting, connecting with other employers and also universities. Yeah. And it's an incredible amount of learning. Everyone's sharing their lessons learned. Everyone's scribbling furiously, learning off each other. And I'm finding at the moment the companies that are competing in the tech space with their autism hiring programs, they're actually collaborating, sharing resources. Michael Fieldhouse at DXC, I was listening to your first podcast with him.
Yes.
Recently, he's been really, really helpful at sharing the things that they've learned. And they've got all of their university research they've done in collaboration with, I think it's Cornell University. They've made it really available to us. So it's a really, really exciting time, I think, to learn from others. And I've just got back from a trip to the US, where again over there were every firm we talked to was super willing to carve out time, share resources, and really set us on a good path ahead.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me at all. The number of people that have reached out to me, and when I've asked someone for some time to have a chat about this stuff, I haven't yet found anyone who isn't prepared to pitch in, and people everywhere reaching out looking for some ideas and tips and guidance and advice. So it does seem to be an area that really brings and draws everyone together in a really collaborative, genuinely collaborative way, it's really great.
Yeah, I really agree with that, and that's my experience as well. I think it's partly because it's all so new. Everyone's learning, and the opportunity is massive in a kind of challenging, but also in an exciting way. I think there was a survey in beginning of this year that said even in the US, where they're kind of leading, 90% of companies still have no neurodiversity strategy or management process. So we're not gonna fix that just Xceptional on our own. We all need to work together, and that's very much happening.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think, and this was one of the reasons why I got started in this and doing this podcast as well. Is that, I've no illusions that one thing's going to fix everything, but I think equally relying or hoping that government policy and other things is going to be the panacea is probably also not where it's going to be. I think it is really lots of organisations and individuals doing something. And that collective momentum is what will tip it over the edge. So
I think it's a bit of both. I've got a bit of a background. I studied a degree in public policy, so I know the importance of getting government on board.
Absolutely.
We had Minister for Disabilities, Ray Williams, come and visit us. He wanted to meet Tim from Employable Me, and that was great to have him coming, visiting us, affirming the work we're doing, and offer to connect us with other employers. But equally, on the other side, we're seeing companies moving faster in terms of having budget, because there's a strong business case. For them, they're seeing roles like we're consistently hearing that cybersecurity and data analytics are some of the top roles for companies that they're struggling to fill. Optus told us their HR team that they're two of the roles they're struggling to fill. We've heard that from other big tech firms as well, and the banks. And those are two roles. We're not saying that everyone in autism should work in technology, but that's where we're focused at the moment as a firm. And those roles map to strengths of certain people with autism. That makes for a really, really exciting push from the business world at the moment.
Yeah, and those two areas you mentioned are really, I guess they're very in vogue and hot, and I can't see the demand for capability in those spaces diminishing anytime soon.
No, only growing. You look at
mm,
firms like Goldman Sachs that used to be only banking staff. They've now got, I think it's a quarter or perhaps even a third of their staff are now data or IT people. It's just growing phenomenally. One analytics firm projected that the gap by 2022, just for cybersecurity, is going to be around 3 million. We're just not creating enough graduates. We've got to start looking in new places, particularly in somewhere like Australia that's got limitations on bringing people overseas. Looking at how can we address other challenges with people being on benefits, not in the workplace, and actually meet that business challenge at the same time. So it's a great place to be in right now for us, and also for the candidates as well.
Well, this is it. I absolutely agree with that. I was very interested, actually. I know you put out a few little teasers on LinkedIn around your US trip, and I know there's probably some stuff you can't share. But what were some of the highlights for you with some of those organisations that you did meet with?
Yeah. So where the trip was kind of in two parts. I can't talk too much about the investor side. A lot of early meetings with investors over there. I can say on a high level there was a lot of excitement, a lot of interest in what we're doing right now, particularly based in Australia and positioned well to expand across Asia Pacific, and also excitement in our new app that we're working on. But the other side of the trip was I was speaking at a software testing conference, who were looking to expand and connect to others sort of on the edges of the software testing world, new communities they wanted to have come and speak at that event in Florida. So they brought me over to speak about our work with people with autism. And it was really, they were really fascinating what we're doing, but also almost everyone in the room said, oh, that makes me think of someone in my office. There are people I've worked with in the past, some of the traits that you're talking about. And so it was an eye-opener for me that particularly in America, there's actually a lot of people have just carved out a way for them to function in technology in particular. It was a real good tip from that perspective. And then one other thing I tagged on was visiting a few groups like us that are and ahead of us in some ways, that employing people. Just down the road from the conference in Florida, there was a car wash called Rising Tide, and you might have seen a few videos of them on social media. Absolutely. It was quite an incredible experience for me to get my car washed there, to see 4 cars being detailed on the inside by 4 people, almost mirroring each other in their consistency, the high standard of their work, they're actually killing it in terms of a car wash in the Miami region, because they're sticking to the safety regulations. They've been able to bring the insurance premiums down. Everything about what they're doing is not just having social impact, it's actually making them a really profitable business. So, and then I visited a couple others, one over in New York that's printing T-shirts, and then a couple in LA. One was a software testing firm like us, Auticon, and the other one was a film studio called Xceptional Minds. People that are making, doing edits to particularly the credits of some of the biggest blockbusters in the world. Working with Marvel, they're working with Star Wars. I had to sign an NDA. I can't talk about any of their future films. But they're pretty, I can say they're consistently up there with some of the best or the most well-known movies in the world, and have found a way to build relationships. So they were sharing with us, you've done work with Westpac. How about you use that to go and talk to some of the other big firms in Sydney? In a sense, we're doing that already, but it was kind of helpful to hear. I said to them, how did you get Star Wars? Well, we just went to Star Wars and said we were working on X-Men. And so it was kind of a no-brainer. It's great to see that kind of learning. And for me to connect in with what's happening in America is just very encouraging that there's an existing industry, that there's others doing this. Sometimes in Australia we can feel a bit a bit kind of disconnected from other parts of the world. And so, yeah, it's helpful to kind of to learn and to bring lessons back to the rest of my team as well.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And but I think it's also, I mean, it was great that they're giving you that validation on the approach to building out your business. But I think it's also a really clear validation that the resource modeling that they're taking actually makes good business sense as well. Like they're not just in it for the social impact, are they? These organisations.
No, it's they're running as sustainable businesses, and they're really focusing in each case on understanding the strengths of their particular pool of people, and finding adaptations to help them to set them up to thrive. You know, even the car wash was very kind of data focused in how they assess people, how they choose. And they don't accept everyone. They really make sure that the people that they're taking on are going to work. And they now know, based on their initial half-hour assessment, they've got a pretty good probability as to whether that person will succeed or not in the long term, just because they've been very, very data focused up front. And that kind of innovation actually potentially work for every car wash, right? You know.
Well, and you'd think it would work for every person who's applying as well, surely.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that's what we're finding with these companies, with our own work, is that, innovations that work well for people on the spectrum could potentially set others up as well. You know, we place people in some of the big banks where we've said, okay, we're going to understand this person's preferred communication style and really set them up for success in the workplace, make sure that they're communicating well with their manager, with their peers, with other people they're working with on their team, any other kind of internal customers they have to work with. And then the manager's saying to me, a little while later, that was such a positive process. I want to do that with my other team members that actually aren't on the spectrum. This makes good sense. Developing a one-page profile of how someone has a successful day. The same guy said to me, I'm more seen as like my name and my job title, my business card. I'd love other people to know that if I don't get my cup of tea at 3:00, then, I'm grumpy for the rest of the afternoon. And if everyone knows that, then we're all in a good place.
Yeah. The number of times I've heard that as well, it's amazing though. And I think that's one of the, I guess the unknowns and the fallacies that people can live with is that, accommodating someone who's slightly different is going to be really challenging. It's going to be really hard. And often what we find is that it's actually nowhere near as bad as you thought, and actually the approaches that you're going to take can be really beneficial to everybody else as well, and it just makes it all could potentially just be nice and seamless once you've once you've adapted that to that new style. So
and I just on that front, I was fascinated to read some research from the Autism CRC, I think it was last year, where they analyzed an employment process for people on the spectrum versus a control group. And they found that even though there were different adaptations that were needed for the new group, they actually weren't greater steps. There was no greater total management time put in. It was just different. And that was a massive light bulb moment for me, because I thought, other people I've managed, with Xceptional and in other places in the past, every now and then there's crisis that comes up, or there's people that said to me, look, I really just much prefer to communicate in person versus over email, or vice versa. In a sense, that's the case with everyone. So it was great to hear a university confirm what I believed, which was that the management needed and the adaptations are not greater; they're just different. So that, I think, is a strong message to employers that are considering starting a program. To hear that, I think is helpful, because people they have this myth that this is going to double if I take somebody on in my department. Normally when we get the senior people of a company on board, we get HR on board, we get the IT department on board, but when it comes down to who's going to be the manager, that this person's going to be placed in their team, who's going to be responsible on a day-to-day level, and it's helping that person understand that this is a different thing, but not going to be greater in their time, and is going to have incredible benefits in the insights, the way this person's going to see data, the problem ideas they're going to come up with. I think actually, we'd like to see in 10 years' time that we're no longer an exception. We're called exceptional, but ultimately I want us to be seen as not exceptional. Of course, everyone employed.
We've got a rebrand coming up, is it? It's Mike Tozer from Ordinary.
I think it's going to take at least a 10-year push, maybe longer.
Yeah.
I was recently watching that movie about the 3 women that get placed at NASA, like in the 60s, and they're working on the computer. I forget the name.
Mm-hmm. No, can't call it.
Watching it a few weeks back, but Kevin Costner's the character who's kind of like, hacking away at the system to make progress for women in the workplace. And, in the same way, now there's still challenges for diversity and gender, but it's a much more developed conversation. We'd love to get there. We're meeting people in the IT world all over the place that's saying, wow, I'd never thought about disability being something that I should consider in diversity. Now, we'd love to see a place where it's much more a part of the conversation, where there's much more progress made. And we're rebranded Ordinary.
I mean, it's a vision that I absolutely share as well. For me, I'd love to see us get to a point where neurodiversity and autism it's normalized. It's not something unusual. It's not something we're not aware of or we don't understand how to manage it. It's just another thing. So someone applies for a job and says, in that process, I'm autistic, and it's okay. But that's not the crux of the conversation. The crux of the conversations around, well, what are your interests? How do you align to this particular opportunity, and what's the value you're going to bring? Because ultimately, that's what we want to know.
Yeah.
And in terms of those accommodations and supports, it should be the same things that employers are offering for anybody, really. Everyone has particular needs when you get down to it. So,
and that mirrors some transitions that are happening in the recruitment, the HR world.
Yeah.
Wanting to cast nets wider, to kind of not leave any stone unturned, to really get to the bottom of the potential with broad spectrum of candidates. But then also once you've picked someone, to really set them up for success in the workplace. Whether they're whatever challenges they bring, once you've got them in, the more we set people up for success, the longer they're going to stick around. Employers are really interested in people that are going to be loyal and long term, as people that are going to be smart.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. One of the things I did want to touch on, and I know not everyone would have seen the Employable Me series, but for those that may have seen that episode, when you interviewed Tim, and you had it was like a Jenga type puzzle thing that you brought out. And I think, so one of the questions that often comes up is around adjustments to the recruitment process and interviews particular. What have you found has been an effective approach to tweaking or taking a different lens on that? We've kind of radically changed our recruitment process from really, really early on. From face-to-face interviews, we've cancelled them. We really don't work for us, for our candidates. Yep. I mean, someone like Tim, he's happy for me to share his story. He's been on TV with it. Actually, he was, when I met him, he was more comfortable with a camera and being mic'd up than I was. We asked him some kind of initial questions about his experience. He'd worked in a school, in an IT department, but really found it challenging to talk about that with someone he'd met for the first time. Yeah. Not Tim, but some of our other candidates can take 20 or 30 seconds to begin an answer. Then when we put them down in front of an activity that they're enjoying, that actually works well with their skills, and so gives them an opportunity to really show what they can do, then suddenly a lot more verbose, a lot more willing to talk about what they're doing at that time, and then other things as well. In the context of that, we can ask some other questions about experience, about other examples of skills in previous workplaces. We've now got more than 70 activities that either we've developed or been shared with us by our partners. That network that I mentioned overseas. Yeah.
So yeah, each of those 70 activities, we don't use them for everyone, for every job. We look at a job description that comes into us. We analyze the kind of core 4 or 5 skills or activities the person's going to be doing, and then we map them across to, probably around each area around 3 of the activities that we have in our bank, and then we put our candidates through those activities instead of face-to-face interviews. So it's a real different way of doing things. For some of our companies that we work with, they're not ready to make such a big adaptation, and so for them we look at, okay, what are the small changes that we can make in your process? How can we make your interview room less anxiety causing? It can be as simple as, rather having the candidate facing a glass screen where there's like 50 people at desks and activity happening behind the glass screen, just getting them and the interviewer to swap rounds. So instead they're facing a wall that's, where there's nothing going on, looking at the lighting, looking at the sound, giving them a video guide to how to get to the office for the interview. Things like that can really make a big difference. And one candidate wrote to me this week and said, thank you for making the interview process not just manageable but actually enjoyable.
Wow.
And I thought, I've had in times when I've been going for jobs in the past, I wish I could have said that about that process as well.
Yeah, well, that's not something you hear very often from anyone, is it? Really, I've never found interviews to be enjoyable, to be honest.
Right.
It's always found them stressful.
I think as there's increasingly a war for talent, particularly for roles like cybersecurity, data analytics, companies are going to realize that it's the employers they're making the process enjoyable, they're actually going to end up getting the best people, because then it gives a picture of how they care about candidates, how they want to set you up for success. One of our employers said that they used to give curveball questions in interviews all the time.
Yeah.
Completely out of the blue,
Yep.
Right now, tell me, how many tennis balls can you fit in a Boeing 747? And then they realize on the job, even though they get curveball questions, it's often already within a piece of work that the person's been working on for, months, if not years.
Yeah.
So you've already got a lot of understanding of the problem. So instead, they started to give people the topics. You're going to get interviewed on some questions that will, involve a volume problem solving, or will involve you looking at a client's project work in this industry. And so, then the person can't fully prepare the whole answer before, but at least it reduces anxiety enough to be more realistic for on the job. So, and someone else this week told me, he'll often stop sort of 10 minutes interview and say, I can notice you're really stressed, or it looks like that. Is that the case? If so, what can we do to change that? And gave me an example. One person said, I'd love to, can we just go for a walk? And suddenly the whole interview shifted, and he knew this person was going to be one of their best employees ever. But for that question, he would have missed that candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to the curveball one. I've been thrown some doozies in the past, and it's just as an interviewee, I didn't think it was helpful at all.
Right.
I walked out of it thinking, I haven't got this at all, and I didn't get it. But it's tricky.
You really want every candidate to leave feeling like they've shown their best side.
Yeah.
And too often that's not the case.
No.
Too often people, I've had it too. You leave and feel like, I really didn't give my best there because of that, curveball or something that came up that really increased anxiety. And that's the case for all of us. But for people on the spectrum for whom it's about 12 times harder to get a job, it's almost like that anxiety is somewhere around 12 times higher on average. Yeah. Any ways we can bring that down for everybody will massively benefit them in particular.
So, Mike, you've mentioned a couple of things around supporting employers with recruitment of people. Is that what is the exact nature then of the business of Xceptional?
Sure. Yeah. So we started off as a software testing firm, doing testing for apps, devices, cross-browser for other organizations.
Yep.
But pretty quickly, one of our customers asked, they said, we don't want software testing at this stage, but we want access to your talent pool. And so we thought it'd just be a one-off recruitment program for them, but it went so well, we've now actually added an exceptional recruitment arm. So we've got 2 business divisions working alongside each other. So people that we're hiring ourselves on the software testing side, then that is giving us lessons that we're then learning and increasing our expertise in how to successfully deploy people with other companies. So actually that recruitment side is just because of that 90-10% statistic about how few companies are doing this, but so many are interested. That's taking off massively, almost beginning to outsize the original focus on the software testing side. We're doing things like placing full-time hires, but also contractors and also interns. The word intern is a great short-term piece of employment that both the candidate and the employer know. This is going to go for 6 or 12 weeks, and then at the end, there's no hard feelings if this doesn't work out or doesn't turn into a full-time job. But each time we have done an internship, actually, so far it has turned into a job, which we're pretty excited about.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really that kind of 2-sided business model is working really well for us at the moment.
That's fantastic. And if people were interested in connecting with you and learning more, or were keen to perhaps partake of your services, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah. We have probably through our website is the best way. We have a general newsletter you can sign up for there. We also have a candidates newsletter where we inform when we have jobs that we're recruiting for. We've actually got a number of developer roles coming up soon. So for software engineers, some people either senior or entry level actually as well, that have some experience in one programming language. So now would be a great time to sign up for that list. You can also reach out if you're not in that particular area. If you've got a more general inquiry, our admin person, her email address is info@xceptional.io. And her name is Helen, and she is doing a great job at managing the interest from a whole lot of candidates. Every time we're on the media, we're getting a lot of interest. We've now got around 200 candidates in our pool. We'd ask people also to be patient with us, as this is a real growth time for us. We want to find opportunities for everyone, but it's going to take a while. We also need more companies to step up as well. So reach out to us through our website or through social media. We would love to hear from individuals and from companies too.
Well, and hopefully you do, Mike. I really do. So that's brilliant. And I'd be very interested, I think, to learn a little bit more about the 70 activities that you talked about as well. So that might be for another time, perhaps. Yeah.
Obviously, we can't share about all of them as they're part of our interview process. We're happy to talk about a few of them another time.
Awesome. Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Mike, and really appreciated your time today, and look forward to speaking with you again soon. And all the best with Xceptional.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks very much for having me on. It's been a real delight to chat with you.
Thanks for listening to the show. I really hope that you got something out of it and that you feel like you learned something new. If you did find the show helpful, please leave a rating and or a comment, as it will really help to spread these lessons and insights wider and hopefully inspire more people to take the next step toward creating more inclusive workplaces. Also, if there is a topic or guest that you'd like me to explore or have on the show, drop me an email or reach out on LinkedIn. Your input is what will help keep the show relevant and helpful going forward. So, until next time, let's work together and level the playing field for neurodiverse job seekers.